All right, hi everyone, thanks for coming. Welcome to JavaScript Lunch and Learn. Michael, thank you for taking the time today to talk to us.
Yeah.
And on screen right now, we have John from Integrate. John, how's it going? Excellent. You want to tell us a little bit about Integrate and why you guys decided to sponsor us?
Joined it very pretty much we are the supercharger that you add to marketing and advertising, everything from data analytics to reporting, performance generation, return on investment, demographic, reaching out to different markets for the marketing and advertising departments. That's pretty much what the platform is. But we are growing like crazy. We established a little bit of like a home here in Birmingham, and definitely wants to partner with help grow. And
Nope. Nope, they're still not here yet, but I'm sure they'll join us here shortly.
Yeah, really excited to partner with base and help any way we can. That's kind of my goal. Is I reached out to Dale, kind of as well as love to partner anything you can help out. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, John, man. We really appreciate it. And it looks like some of your team just started walking in. So, all right, well, we're going to get started. Thanks again, man. Appreciate you. All right, Michael.
Cool.
The floor is yours.
Awesome. One thing I'll say is that I didn't see a link to the stream in the meetup, and I think a lot of people were looking for it there. If we can get that thrown up, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. Let's see. It may be because I had it open and I did not say it. That is.
Been there a million times.
Oh, everyone who does not have a link to the thing that we're doing right now, that does not have a link for
It's okay. That was an exclusive for all of you in the room, an exclusive talk by John. So consider yourselves honored, really. While we're doing that, hey everybody. Thank you. Hey. Are we good? Are we up? We got a link?
in the comments. I can't, since we already started.
It's good enough.
Good
Good enough. All right, cool. Hi, online, if anybody's watching yet. I hope not. And hey to everybody in the room. I don't know a lot of you. I know a couple of you fine gentlemen here and others. So it's really it's good to, it's not a fine gentleman, but it's good to see everybody. So I want to start by saying that I kind of don't love these sort of talks because I feel like half the time it's people just coming in and being like, look how smart I am. I did this thing because I'm really smart and you're not as smart as me. So I'm going to take everything, or you should take everything I say today with a little grain of salt. Everything we're talking about is just a method of building APIs that I've been using a lot this year. I find it really effective. I find it a quick way, like super quick way to build something really robust. As in, we're going to build a totally serverless TypeScript API with a database and everything, and we're going to do it in like an hour today, and we're going to get at least one endpoint stubbed out, basically in an hour. So it's just fast. It works really well for me. It works well for my team. This is not going to be some big talk on TypeScript specifically or serverless specifically, or really even TypeORM. It might be a good interview or introduction overview to all of those things. But the main goal I wanted is this to be like a code along thing. So I see a couple of people have laptops, and if you want to, I'm going to go slow, and hopefully we'll slow enough where everybody can sort of be in this with me. Ask questions at any point, literally any point. Just throw your hand up if something I say doesn't make any sense, if I'm going too fast, if I'm going too slow. You can, yeah, just throw it at me. So I'm calling this talk Not So Scary Serverless APIs with TypeScript and TypeORM, because most of those terms scared the crap out of me for a really long time. Serverless didn't make any sense to me. TypeScript scared me. ORMs confused and kind of scared me too. And being Halloween, I thought that was appropriate. So the first thing I want to do is talk about the what and why of all of these different things. Why did I choose them? What are they? That sort of stuff. So serverless, I think most people, it's a really simple JavaScript-based system. It's basically config as code to build and deploy cloud architecture really easily. It's a whole CLI tool. It's a configuration setup. It's really nice and easy to use. Like I said, config as code. It allows you to deploy not just to one system, but to AWS, Azure. I think there's like a handful of other ones you can use it with, and you can actually port from thing to thing pretty easily too. So if you had to make the move from AWS to Azure, if you have all of your serverless config set up, it's just a couple of changes, and you can deploy it to different places. So that's a really nice. Like the portability is great. It supports JavaScript. It supports TypeScript. I think it might even support like some other things. Like I think you can do serverless inside of Python. I think you can do serverless in maybe Ruby and some other ones. But I like, being a JS dev, it's literally out of the box. You can do stuff in TypeScript or JavaScript, and with a single plugin, it'll handle it fine. I love that you can do your config in JSON or YAML, whatever you're comfortable with. There's also some like really advanced ways to do your config with straight up JavaScript. So that's interesting. I haven't really gotten into it. Why TypeScript? I think we all probably are loosely familiar with TypeScript at this point. It is a superset of JavaScript, which means it is just JavaScript under the hood. It's just a way that it's just a compiled kind of JavaScript. So everything you write just compiles down to JavaScript. But it adds a lot of nice things: static typing, interfaces, enums, lots of little pieces. And mainly it was Microsoft's way of saying we want our devs to write JavaScript and C# all day, and we don't want them to have to code switch much. So if you're familiar with C#, super similar. A lot of those like nice static typing pieces are really, really good. And what I love about them is that it really, for me, prevents a lot of typos and type mismatching. That's the beauty of it. As I feel like I can write 200 or 300 lines of code without even running it, and I'll know where I've screwed up because I'll get my red squigglies in VS Code, and it'll tell me. And I don't do as much doc digging because if I give it a type, it tells me what arguments it expects. It tells me what the type should include. I mean, it just gives you a lot more context to everything you do. So you're writing JavaScript, you're getting all the goodness of a statically typed language. And then TypeORM, I feel like it's not maybe as widely used. ORMs are nice because they make connecting to a database and working with its data a whole lot simpler, in my opinion. I feel like you're basically always writing your own ORM or you're using an existing one. And eventually, if you build something big enough, you're writing your own thing. And if anybody here is not super familiar with ORMs, object relational, some things, they're ORMs. It's a good way to connect to a database and make your calls to that database through more common code. So you're not writing a ton of SQL, and you're getting good practices out of the box. Rather than writing a big SQL query to get all or select star from employees, you would run like employees.find, and that will do your SQL call with best practices, totally handled, and it feels more natural. It feels like you're using a good SDK or package that allows you to interface with your own database really nice and easily. And I like TypeORM because it's everything works here one-to-one with the database. So your data layer, your models are always in sync. You're not having to like fetch data from one side or the other, manually keep things in sync. And then also it plays really nice with TypeScript, being TypeORM. And we'll look at a little more why it's TypeORM. So those are kind of my three big pieces of this, and the what and the why. Oh, sorry. Also, I've used Sequelize, which is the big popular, not quite ORM. It's really more of a connection library for JavaScript. And with Sequelize, I just feel like there's less setup. There's more setup with Sequelize, and you don't get as much functionality. And just TypeORM is really the way to go if you're going to be building any kind of size database system. So what we're building today, we're actually going to be, you're going to do some of my homework with me. Building something, it's very cool system. Recently was reached out to by a new company, and they have some sort of interesting business goals. And I think that's what you always want to focus on. Start building something. The technology is cool, but it should always be, what do I know? What's going to work quickest for me? Think about the goals, think about your business goals. And so I know that they need basically an inventory management system, and they need to keep track of the details of the acquisition and delivery of all their inventory. And they also have a, they need to record what inventory what employee acquires what inventory, and then they also need to sort of keep the employee information. So it's an interesting company. It's a startup company out of New York. It's 3 New York PhD candidates. Their business goals are interesting. I think what they're trying to do is really interesting because they're capturing ghosts. So we're going to be building a CRM for the Ghostbusters. Let's go. Cool. So this is the part where we all code along. I posted that if you're going to follow along, we need a couple of prereqs. So I'm going to assume that we have npm node serverless installed globally, that we have TypeScript installed globally, and we'll go from there. Beautiful thing about serverless is super easy to get up and going. You literally can just type serverless, and it'll walk you through setting up a new serverless. I actually want to be in my local host, so give me a second. I'm going to do that. Yep, we just run serverless, and it'll walk us through the process. So yeah, even here it. Yeah, what's up? Boy.
I can see it right on YouTube. No, we can cut out those lights up here.
Yeah, that's really, wow, y'all.
That is really good. It looks really good though, visually.
Cool. Is that better? Awesome. Awesome. So it's going to step us through, and of course they have these starters you can use. And we're going to go with just the basic HTTP API starter for Nodejs. Boom. Start there. We're going to call this project Ghostbusters CRM. Sure. It's not really a CRM. It's going to download the template. It's going to set some stuff up for us, and it's going to put us a folder. Serverless dashboard, cool telemetry system that they have set up. We're not going to use it. I have no idea what this step does. I think it maybe means, do you want to go ahead and deploy it right now? Which, no, we haven't built anything. I'm not going to deploy anything, so no. Cool. And then we can go ahead and jump into the folder it just created, Ghostbusters CRM. Next thing we want to do is go ahead and set up an npm package. I'm just going to do npm init y, which answers yes to everything. I don't really care what it says. And then let's start installing some packages. So serverless is now set up and running. A couple of nice things that I like to use when I'm doing serverless. The main one is Serverless Offline. Is a really, really sweet way to run your serverless APIs totally offline. You hit some minor hitches if you get into some real fancy stuff with, I don't know, different things. But if you're just building a pretty simple API that's mostly just retrieving data, this is a good one to use. We're also going to use the serverless-plugin-TypeScript, which is going to give us that full TypeScript functionality just about as soon as we enable it. And then we're also going to install TypeScript as part of our package, just so it's required and we know that it's here. I'm going to let it run that, and then we're going to look at some type packages. How many people here just in this room have used TypeScript before? Maybe a lot. Cool. Awesome. All right. So y'all will understand that most of your third-party libraries are going to come with their own types. And a type is basically just we're talking about a type definition that says, it's called this, and it expects these arguments, these parameters, these whatever, and they should be of this type. So we're going to install some specific type packages. We're going to do one for AWS Lambda, because this one is a Lambda, and it's returning it. It's going to give us some types for our actual, responses and what we're returning from Lambda. We're going to do types. We're going to install some types for, what else do I have here? For Node, which comes into play. What is that? Is that a fire alarm?
No, but
Okay. And we'll do the types for serverless. And I just realized I wrote type, not types for all of these. Give me 1 second. I'm not copy pasting anything. I'm just reading off my cheat sheet. So we'll get some of those types installed, and that's basically all we need to build this thing until we get into the TypeORM stuff, which we'll do in a second. First thing that I really want to do is just get those pieces set up. We just installed a couple of serverless plugins. We've got a whole serverless piece set up here, and I'm going to open that up, and we can take a look at it. I'm probably going to have to make the text bigger here. Is that readable?
I mean, some of the other one.
Is this better? I keep going. All right. So, that's weird. It looks so big right here. In our serverless.yaml, this is going to be our main configuration file for anything we do in serverless. And we can go ahead and install or activate the plugins we just installed by just providing a plugin array here. And what were the two? We have Serverless Offline, which again gives us a little local development environment right out of the box. And we're going to do Serverless Plugin TypeScript. And that's, that's literally it. The only other thing I'm going to do, because I'm a stickler for this, I'm going to add my start script to npm because I think that you should just always have it. And now we have this SLS offline. We'll spin up our local environment. I like using npm run script to do my things. Cool. And with that, we can actually run some stuff. Yeah, we we have a full environment going now. I'll make this a little bit bigger. A little better. I mean, npm run start, and barring any major issues, woo, offline not found. Oh, what did I do, everybody? Tell me where I'm wrong. We installed it, right?
Did you do it?
Yep, and aha. I'm really missing a lot of my S's today. I don't know, it's a singular kind of day. Let's see what we get now. There you go. Okay, there is no TypeScript yet. We will change that shortly, but we have a little API running now. We can go check it out. Let's make this full screen and big. We'll go to localhost 3000, it's default port, and that's going to return us just a nice big, easier to see, just a nice big default output. Cool. Let's look at how easy it is to change this to TypeScript. Voila, we're done, and it handles it. I changed changed from JS to TS, and now it's a TypeScript file, and this will all handle everything. Yeah, our tooling is done. One thing I do want to do is I want to go. I don't want to do that. I want to close this. Yeah, sorry. I want to put this all in a source folder just to keep things a little organized, and then we'll move the handler into here. That will, if we restart it, that will fail because it no longer knows where our handler file is. Let's just watch it fail. And like I've been saying, serverless is just config as code. So all we have to do is go back to our serverless file and let it know where that now lives. So now lives not in the root, but /source/handler.hello. Handler is the name of the file, and this .hello is the function within our handler that it's going to call. Nice little shorthand system it uses. So this will run again. The TypeScript will compile right there, and everything is good to go. Let's just check it one more time. Boom, we're still getting everything back. So we're, whatever, maybe 5-10 minutes in, and we have an API running locally. We could deploy this to AWS with single command. Super easy, super nice. We're rocking and rolling. Questions so far? Awesome. Cool. Let's. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I mean, technically everything we're doing is Node. the way that it's routing and handling everything is through that serverless setup. So it's going to deploy all of those. Let's see. You go back here and you look at where it says functions hello. This is going to be a Lambda that it deploys. And then it's going to wrap all of this in an API gateway setup and do your routing like that. So it really does everything as true microservices. But again, it handles it all kind of behind the scenes. And
would this work with like something that's Lambda compatible, like open cost?
yeah, I don't know. I'm sure you probably could. I hadn't really thought about it, but there's, like I said, when you can change these provider settings, and usually all of this stuff stays the exact same. And so there's probably a lot of ways that we could, choose different providers. I don't even know what all it supports because, admittedly, I do everything AWS, but I know like it would be as easy as changing name to Azure and some other settings, and boom, we're on Azure. I would imagine people have built systems for OpenFOSS and some of these other ones, and yeah, but that's good. I need to look into what all providers it supports.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does configuration as code mean code that's generated by configuration file, or is it like configuration files generated by Typescript?
It is more like you're doing all of your configuration in code. Yeah. So basically, rather than a bunch of point and click and digging endlessly through the AWS console, you write out a bunch of code and it handles it. So if you've used CloudFormation, Terraform, any of those, that's all kind of config as code. This is just really simple, and I'm very smooth brained, so I like this. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, let's get into the fun stuff and crack open TypeORM. So we're going to do some more installs. Open a new tab here. We're going to npm I TypeORM, and we also need a connector. It uses the standard Node npm connector libraries. If you've done SQLize, if you've done any sort of database connection in Node, you're probably familiar with PG or the just basic MySQL or MS SQL. It's all of those. It can connect with any database. That's another reason I love TypeORM. We're going to use PG because I just like Postgres. This would be just as simple if you were using MySQL, MariaDB, probably MS SQL, but I'm not smart enough and qualified enough to use Microsoft SQL Server, so we're going to ignore it. Great. Let's let it do its thing. TypeORM is cool to me mainly because when you define your entities, when you're building your tables and your rows, you're also setting up a type that you can use. They're kind of one and the same. The type and the entity are one and the same. So I'm going to switch over here and we're going to build our first type. I like to do everything in these folders. I'm more of like a don't separate by its functionality, separate by its like grouping. So I wouldn't do models slash car, view slash car, controller slash car. I would do car slash car.model. So that, two different ways of thinking about it. We're going to do everything with the component at the top level. So we're going to start with employees. Jim, you missed the first part of it, but we're building a CRM for the Ghostbusters. I thought you would really appreciate that. So we're going to start with employees. And the first thing we have to do is build an entities file. And it's just a class. We'll take a look at it in a second. But I'm going to use the pattern employee.entity.ts. And all we're doing is we're exporting, just export a class. And we're going to call it employee. And it's going to extend this base entity that comes from TypeORM, which it doesn't want to auto import. I don't know what that's about. Because again, y'all, my S key is broken today. I don't know what's going on. I've missed like 5 of them. Let's try it now. Base entity. It still don't want to auto import. That's fine. Import base entity from TypeORM. Great. And within this class, we're literally just defining some. We're really just giving it some. What am I trying to call? Variables is all we're doing. And those variables we map to columns, and we'll use some decorators, and I'll show you how that works in a second. It's kind of a new TypeScript thing, so I'll throw an error in a second. But I'm just going to go back to my little cheat sheet here, my list of what fields we need, and I'm going to give it a first name, and it's going to be a string. I'm going to give it a last name. It's also going to be a string. I'm going to give it the title. You know, every employee has their very important title. Dr. Bankman was a doctor, man. Email is also going to be string. We could potentially find some crazy type that does checking, but in my experience, TypeScript doesn't do very good job of like using regex types. It's just a messy overhead thing. Date of birth is the only one that's going to be different. We're going to use an actual date, just a basic JavaScript date type for that. And then we also want to have a unique ID. That'll be an integer, I guess. We're not going to do anything fancy. Integer, did I spell that right? Oh, you just use number, sorry. And then we're going to have some other ones. We're going to have an inserted at, and we're going to have a created at. I like created. Created at, and then we're going to have an updated at. I think I'm just a stickler for that kind of stuff. When you're doing database management, you just know when your records are made, know when somebody screwed with them last. This will not work at all because we have to use these decorators. TypeORM does a really good job of using decorators, which are not quite experimental, not quite in the spec for TypeScript yet. There's some flags we're going to have to set up here in a second. But if you're coming from, I'm pretty sure Ruby uses decorators, Python uses them a lot. If you're from that world, you'd be super familiar with this decorator pattern. Let's save this, and I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go over to, I sent out a link to a gist that I made ahead of time that includes our ORM config, which we'll get to in a second, and a TS config. And this is just telling the TypeScript compiler, hey, use these rules. And one of them is that bottom one, experimental decorators. So if you take that from the link I sent, I'm just going to put that in tsconfig.json and paste it all in there. And now we'll be able to use our experimental decorators without issue. And so the ones that TypeORM wants to see, it wants to see an entity at the very top. And these are all functions. These decorators are technically functions in TypeScript. It wants to see a column on all of these, and cheat. And how do we do this like this? At column. Some of these are going to be fancy columns, though. Cool. Some of these are going to be fancy columns. Like this guy right here. He is going to be not a column. He's going to be a generated column. Yes. Yeah, I'll show you that again. I'm very lazy, so I gotta find it. So I select, okay, I saw that the end of every line is a semicolon here, so I select it and Command D will select the next one and add multiple cursors for every one of them, boom, 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 and now I can just control them like this. So I go back to the first of the line, enter, type my at column rule, and then arrow down and new lines, yeah. Yeah, multiple cursors, very, very choicey, especially if you're like me and you're not good with the fancy Vim bindings. I can't do all that. So this one is, let's see, what is it? Primary generated column is a nice TypeORM decorator that says, it handles all of that fancy ID stuff that you normally have to do. It handles all of it by itself. It's going to like default to, the last one plus one. It's going to keep it in range. It's going to do all that fancy stuff, and you just have to tell it this. Same with our created at and updated at. I think they call it an inserted or created. Yeah, create date column, boom, and it's going to handle default is now, whatever. And there's one for update date column as well, boom. And now we actually have a functioning entity file. This works as a type, and when we call it the first time, we're going to set up some stuff that says, hey, go ahead and build this table for me too. Without any migrations, it's just going to synchronize it. It's a really good way to get started kind of up front. Doesn't work well in production. Synchronized tables in TypeORM, not good in production, hard lesson learned. Do it locally and then build your migrations and then run your migrations in production, or you'll waste an entire day figuring out why that doesn't work. Yeah, great. This is our entity. I mean, this is going to build a table. let's switch and do, yeah, we have to set up a connection to the database, right? This is obviously, it's not just going to magically figure out, like read my mind and do it. There's many different ways that TypeORM can connect to a database. And we're going to look at just the simplest one, which is to define an ORM config.json in the root and pass it in what it expects to see, which again, I sent all this out in advance. So we're just going to copy and paste it and walk through it. Obviously, the type of connection is Postgres. That's what we define, that's what we're using. Host, port, username, password, database, used to all that. You'll need a test if you're following along real closely. Database with the username, password, test, and the database name is test. The synchronized true is the one that I talked about and said this will say to synchronize basically every time you run. If this database doesn't exist, run it. But if you do this in production, it will overwrite your data. That's what I'm trying to say, is that it will totally blow away your tables. Be careful. And you might even do like, process.env.node.env equals development or whatever. If you were doing this in production, you'd set some flags there. For entities, it's an array. And technically, you can take all the entities that we build, like employee, ghost, captures, all the things we're going to build. You could put those as individual items in this array. I have had some weird issues where I've had to do that in the past. I know this is working because I've tested this extensively. So we're going to just set it to use our, basically everything, you see the pattern here, **star.entity. Anything that has that star.entity.js, it'll recognize as an entity. The reason it's JS is because this file is just a JSON file, and it cannot process any TypeScript. And when it's pulled into TypeORM cannot handle a raw TypeScript file. It builds it first, and then it makes the connections. So we're going to our .build folder, which is where it's, after it compiles all the TypeScript, it's putting it there, and keeping our same file structure we had, source, whatever. They're just now JS files. So this should work, and this will allow us to, again, we create an entity, an employee, and we've connected it, and we've told it where the database exists and where it lives and how to get to it. And if we were to go run some code to create an employee, if we passed it all the right information that it needs, it'll create our table and insert an employee row. So we're going to do just that. Before that, questions?
Also confirmation that online.
That what?
Online is good.
Cool. All right. Well, let's do it. Let's make an employee. We're going to do this in our handler, and I'm going to go ahead and do something too. First off, obviously this handler is not TypeScript. It's not even like ES6. This is like really old school code that it pops out. I'm going to move the handler to employee because each endpoint will probably have its own handler file and it'll relate to a component. So we'll put them all in here. I'm also going to kill that, export const hello, and I'm going to get rid of my use strict. There we go. Cool. And we'll leave that for now. All we really want to do is to connect to our database and create a new employee and save it to the database. So we're going to do we'll save it as a thing. So we'll call it full on connection equals, what is it? Use connection. No, I'm stuck in React land. Sorry, guys. Oh gosh. Connection. What is it? Connection manager. Get connection manager. Get connection. It's not get connection. I just tried that, didn't I? Nope. There it is. Cool. Get not use. Get connection. This is an asynchronous call, so we've got to give it a wait here. And what that's going to do is say connect to the database until further notice. Once we're connected, we can start using our entities that we've defined to do whatever we want. And this is where the magic comes in, because if we want to build or add a new employee, we literally just instantiate that class, define all of its variables, and then run the save function, and it's done. So it all acts like a, probably just what you're used to with any kind of like old school, just basic object-oriented stuff. new employee, sorry, const employee equals new employee. And so now we have this instantiation. We do employee dot first name equals Peter. Employee dot last name, Bankman. Let's do employee. What other characteristics do we have? We can hover here and we actually can't see. What else do we have? We have an email, P Bankman at ghostbusters.com. We have date of birth, I know. The ID and the inserted at, updated at, those are handled fine. Let's give him a title. It's going to be, he's a doctor, man. And his date of birth is, I looked up Bill Murray's date of birth, actual date of birth. I think it was September 21st, 1950, maybe? It's old. Cool, we'll call it like that. Now, this is going to create our employee object. It's going to assign all those variables. It's not going to do anything else with the database until we run employee.save. Boom, now it's written to the database. At this point, we're good to go, and we can close our connection to the database, and that's it. We have now successfully written this to the database. We can get it back, and we'll take a look at that. So let's go ahead and close our connection. You don't want that just lingering forever. Connection.close. And if we now run this exact same endpoint that we've been running, it will, let's just give a full walkthrough. It'll go to slash, just our root path. If we make a get call to that slash, we go to handler and look up what handler we're calling. We're calling ./source/handler, which doesn't exist, and then look for hello function. So we want ./source/employee/handler, and then this hello function, we'll keep it called hello. We also probably don't want this at root, right? Because we're going to have multiple endpoints. So this is where we define that. /employee, and we make a get call to /employee. Then it will run that function that we've defined over here. And for now, it'll do, a fat lot of nothing. We can go ahead and return the employee information just so we know we've done something right. Is that a question?
Yeah, there was a comment from Matt online about TS. I think you already fixed that. You keep the function name below inside the application.
So what now?
Like, if you go back to your, to here, right? So that would map it to a root function below.
Yes, this is really just how it's going to name it inside of your cloud architecture, and this is what function it's actually calling. And we should probably.
Would you normally put like employer or employee dot?
Yeah. I'm going to probably say we'll call this. Yeah, let's just leave it hello, because I'm going to change some stuff later. We're actually going to add multiple functions and everything. And if you want to know the real truth, how I normally do this is I'm going to define these blocks for each endpoint in a separate file, a separate YAML file. And then I'm going to load those in a list right here. That just, if I'm doing a bunch of endpoints, that keeps it nice and separate. Okay, let's run this. Let's go. This is maybe still running, but probably needs to be restarted. Are we up? We're up. Okay, serverless offline root not found. That's because we have removed our root. I hate the English language. We're going to go to employee instead, and connection default was not found. Oof. All right. So we have our orm config .json defined here. Did I do something wrong? Is that not what you call it?
TS or JS?
It should just be JS. Should be JSON. Sorry, yeah.
Entity.js. That's the comment I think from Matt. Go back to that file. Didn't you rename it TS? Like if you go back to your config file.
Yep. Correct.
Okay.
And it has to be JS because what I was saying is it needs the built JS files that should be building here. You go to your .build, you go to your source. This is where it's actually compiled the TS, right? And so here's our employee.entity.js. It's got to use that vanilla JS in this entities array, which again, lesson hard learned. So I think I've done that correctly. And it really is just complaining that it can't connect. So I may actually, I'm wondering if I have this file named wrong, which wouldn't surprise me. ORM config.json, ORM config.json. And the complaint is that connection default was not found. We've got everything set right. I know that my database exists. So for some reason, it's not wanting to actually use this basic default connection. I'm not totally sure why. I have some reference code I can look at here in a second. Let's go back. It could just be a confusion. It could just be messed up. But everything looks right to me. So I'm going to cheat. That's all we do here. I'm going to go back to some good existing working code and just check it out really quick. I wanted to not do this, but I should have known better. I was going to have to. Oh wait, actually, let's do this one. I'll do my actual serverless talk test that I know worked. We have that ORM config, and it's basically the exact same. Well, see, that was when, oh yeah, I mean, it was running when we did that, and Postgres is running and up and good. So not a crazy question, but we have our ORM thing. I'm going to copy paste this one instead. But everything else looks like it should be fine. Sorry for the hiccup. Yep, it's the exact same thing. Let's kill us. Just try again. A lot of times when I'm using TypeORM, I will define this connection in its own file. I'll, be maybe a little more robust with it than to just throw it in kind of in the root like this. And this is why. But like I said, the last couple of times, just having a default connection hasn't given me any issue. You know what it could be? I wonder if I've maybe got that function wrong. I fumbled around over it, so it stands to reason that like it could be the wrong thing. Let's just pull this code up again. So in my handler, you remember I was trying to connect to the database and I couldn't remember what that function was. Good chance that it is create connection, not get connection. So that's exactly what it was. Life lesson here is don't trust yourself. You're always wrong. All right, cool. Now let's get up and going. My secret is that I'm a very bad developer and a very good debugger. Voila, we have made life. We've created life. So if we go to, I like to use Postico. I don't know if you guys have ever used Postico. It's a good little, very simple tool for dealing with Postgres databases. Let's go to our test DB, and boom, we have an employee table it created. And oh no, we don't actually have a row inserted, which is weird, right? Because it did our thing here, and it acted like it worked. So again, I think I have a something wrong where I am, save and then have connection close. I think that maybe there's some confusion there. We're going to actually break this out into some better practices here in just a second. I want to look at my code, which I need to not close because I'm going to screw up a lot more stuff as time goes on. Let's find that serverless talk and pull it up. I did the wrong thing. Yep, let's take a look. So it's definitely just save. Actually, maybe we don't have to. I bet we don't have to close the connection there. Actually, I bet save is asynchronous, and yes, and I'm just not waiting. But I think save will automatically close our, it's going to auto close our connection anyway, so there's nothing to worry about. So we don't close here, and we're actually going to do await save. That should be more correct. And then we don't have to, that's just a little bit cleaner, probably just await connection and then await save. So now let's go back. Let's make sure we're running. Yeah, something failed. As you change your code around, screw that, it gets mad and it just quits.
Does it auto update though if let's say
Yeah, but it's not as robust as like your, Gatsby create React app. Some of those like front end things, or even some other dev servers I've used, it's not as robust. It'll fail a lot. You just got to restart a lot. Cool. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Now we have we have our dates coming back correctly. We have our created app, updated app, and I feel a lot more confident that if we go here, boom, we actually have it in the database. So that is awesome. We have an actual employee created. We know that this is working. The next thing I want to do is start breaking this out into some controller methods, actually getting some good structure, robustness behind this. Before then, questions so far? Got 10 minutes. Great. We're halfway through. So yeah, I think that probably the most useful thing then is to keep going where we're at. I kind of wanted to get through some more stuff. And if anybody's like super interested and wants to stick around, I've got time. We can look at it. But the big thing is breaking this out into just some better code practice. Like we're going to use employee.controller.ts, and rather than like do some nonsense like this, we're going to build a employee controller class. And within that, I like to do kind of your typical old school, like find one function. I'm going to do like a find all function. And I like to do that to separate concerns, where this handler is literally just handling a request, doing its thing, and returning it. And then our controller is doing your true actual business logic. So let's take, now that we actually have an employee in here, let's scrap this for a second. And I'm going to build this like I was actually building a real endpoint, real thing. So the first thing I would do is I would have, not use caps lock. I will export const, and this will be get all employees. Okay. This is the function that our serverless config will call. And all we want to do is we want to, let's call it const employees. This would be an array of employees because we haven't actually gotten into real TypeScript stuff. Sorry if that's what you were here for. This is going to be employee controller.find all. And then what we're going to do is just return. I would use a helper function here, which I wanted to get into that too. Write a little helper function for a successful return object. But I'll probably just return and say status code of 200 and body, you have JSON.stringify, and then we're going to pass it employees. This is great in happy path if it works, but since it's async and because we want to catch some errors, basic try catch block, we're going to try all this. And if it errors out, again, separation of concerns, we don't want to throw an error because we're the only people that will see that. We want to actually return an error so that your API always returns some data. So I'd probably have a failure handler function. I'm going to return code just 500 and body stringify error.detail. Should have a detail. I might even put those in like its own object so it never returns blank, even if this for some reason did. Maybe data. Okay, and then you see the only thing we're missing here is this find all function. I'm going to define my find all function. It needs to be public. It needs to be static because you notice we're not instantiating instantiating a new employee controller. We're just calling the function right on it. So that's got to be a static. I'm also going to use, I like to do everything basically as, I like to do all my functions as variables equaling a function. I don't know how or when I got into that, but just do it all the time. And here is where we do employee.find. We'll return all of them. But we also want to do some level of error handling here, right? This is also an await. We want to do some stuff here because, again, on the front end, we want to tell the end consumer of our API, hey, something went wrong. This tells us, hey, this is what went wrong. So we're going to catch an error. We are just going to throw a new error with error, give us all that data. And otherwise, we're going to just actually return this. We're not going to define it. So that would work. All that code should work. Employees it doesn't like because it could also return nothing because there's a path here where this returns nothing. So we might even say like return false. And then we'd have to say it could be this or false. There's other ways to handle this. I still don't like it. I don't know what it's complaining about. Great. Oh, because it's a promise, because it's asynchronous. And that's going to then, see, this is why I like TypeScript. It catches all this soon. And it's still, now it's got to say false also, but that's that. Maybe not. Still give me weird stuff. Okay. Not going to worry too much about that since we're short on time. But I'll say this is more akin to how I would write this. And then in serverless, of course, I would have a function. This would be get all employees, and then employee handler dot get all employees. So that's, you know, again, more akin. Actually, this should be plural, and there'd be our get. I think real quickly, we'll do some questions. The last thing I would say is that for for creating one, we would take basically what we had here, but rather than hard code all these, we would let's see, we'd probably break all these out, and I would destructure them, const all of these things, boom, 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 and boom, are equal to, we just JSON.parse our event.body, and so that's just saying that like all of these are going to be blocks in our, in the JSON object that we pass for the body, and then rather than all of these hard-coded strings, I would take and do this, except for date would still, I'd want to be able to pass it in as a string. So date of birth, and that would pretty much handle our create one employee function. Yeah, of course we want to do all our handlers and our catch stuff. That's basically the way that you would do a post method. Of course, you'd set it to post. It'll take in a body, handles all that. You do literally just parse the event body, and then you have all of those there. I really wanted to get into more of some of the TypeScript stuff and using types. We can go over that. I really wanted to get into, where's some of the other pieces here? Talking about relationships, how you handle relationships within TypeORM is really nice. If anybody wants to see that specifically, we can talk about it. Questions. I'm going to open up just general questions about any of this stuff. I'll do my best to answer them. Yeah.
So I have a map and a bunch of API. What you do is you all so all of it you have what's the easiest call how
Yeah. The first thing I can tell you is that if you're already using serverless, you're in a pretty good spot because all of your routing and handling like this, again, is pretty portable between languages. You can take most of the same serverless.yaml configuration files you've written and just map them to new functions. And then I would break it down function by function and really just do the syntactical change, right? So in Python, you've got your def create one, or maybe even like one, and then you're going to do blah, blah, blah. The very first thing I would do is just take all those defs and change them to like const this equals a function, and then put some return blocks, and then go line by line and say if this was, var1 equals b, I would go ahead and do const var1 equal and string, and then just start doing the syntax changes and then let it run and then chase down your bugs, chase down your errors. But if you understand the syntax of both of them, I would just straight up convert it syntax for syntax. Don't overthink it. Say what now? Yeah, and really, or start function by function and then line by line. Yeah, there's not going to be probably a good automated way that can do that. Most tools that exist would just never be able to handle the edge cases. There might be some cool like artificial intelligence stuff out there.
So is it not possible to do the async in Python? Is there like do that a limited on the Python side that you cannot do?
So it is possible. There's Django, there's Go, and I tried them a little bit, and it introduces some overhead that the same is if the overhead is say that and you can say like policy, it's even up. So I would think since JavaScript was around
So it would be really interesting to see a comparison of like compare the function and see how much it actually buys.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah. Just do like one endpoint and just see what your return times are comparatively. Yeah, sure.
and you may have test scores, you may not provide a structure. If you're doing anything more than like very basic stuff, your specific use case that you provide may present like increase in load time or response time.
Yeah.
So that's why the existing function may work better for your specific use.
Yeah, I think I would probably, if I was going to kind of do a shootout test, I would definitely take something we are already doing and take the Python code, convert it to TypeScript, and just compare them one to one and see what I get. Yeah, good question, man. Anything else? Anybody else? Wide open here. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a great talk.
Thank you.
I would be down to see some of the associations.
Oh, I've got time. Yeah.
But the other question, maybe I missed it, but did you create the database in Postgres initially? It doesn't.
Yes. It's not going to do that for you. You do have to have a database with a username and password that you can pass to this config, right? So I already had a database called test with a username called test that has the password of test. Security is important. And then it was running on the port, had it running, all that. It'll create your tables. It'll create all kinds of stuff for you, just not the database
That's my second question. As far as the table, maybe I missed it. Did you define that there should be an employee table, or is it smart enough to read the model?
So it does that through this entity. It says, okay, the class is called employee, and it's marked as an entity, so I'm going to create an employee table. And you can actually tell it, like I think right here, you can do table or like name. Yeah, I could say call it GB employee if I wanted to and give it a custom name. Otherwise, it will just like snake case this
Lowercase.
class name. Yeah, lowercase. And then I think if I did if I did GB employees, it would, it'd actually probably convert that to like G_B. Yeah, I think it's going to do like a really rudimentary case conversion. But you can define it. You actually have almost as much control over these columns as you want. Same kind of thing here. If I want to call it first name, if I wanted to call it first name in that case in my code, but I wanted the table to be, or the column to be snake case, first underscore name, I can do that too. So you really have a crazy amount of control if you want it, if you need it, which makes it nice for like wrapping existing APIs too. If you've got an existing database, and you're wrapping that in TypeORM, you have super amounts of control over dumb old legacy things that you're trying to update how you interface with it. You can really handle it.
At the end of the hour of stuff, like as we made this company, should we like have another lunch?
I'd love to do another talk. I've actually thought like it'd be fun to do maybe even a series where we keep working on this. do the other tables, do the relationships, and then it'd be fun to integrate with a third party too. I thought about using like Cloudinary or one of those image hosting systems. So how do how do I like from a front end form pass it an image and pass it through to my API that then uploads it to Cloudinary and returns me a URL, something like that.
If you're willing to do next one, let's continue the series.
Let's do it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Halloween theme probably won't really go as well. Maybe I'll make it like kind of Thanksgiving themed, Thanksgiving with the Ghostbusters. I'm a little locked in now, but or we can make recipes. We'll make a little recipe app. Won't that be cute, everybody? Like, hey, now I like this. I hear this guy makes some mean chili, and he's gonna whip us up some chili for us. So yeah.
No, I mean, the lazy guy, they said, we got sponsors, lunch, but.
No, I think it's great. Let's do it. I'll be glad to take on next month and kind of just continue with this and we'll keep going. I would say that if you have followed along, if you're playing along with me, like tell me, like, keep building on your own and learn a little bit as you go and try to get ahead. I think, let me put it up here.
You published a copy of this.
Yes. .com. You can get me here. This is my email that you can only see part of now. This is my email. Feel free to reach out to me. Hit me up. I'm also, if you're in the Magic City Slack channel, yeah, if you're in there.
Sorry. Also online, we have confirmation that people do want holiday theme continuation.
Okay, all right. We may change it up next time. We may not start with this as a base and start with another base. I'll give the repo out, and next time it might be it might be Thanksgiving themed, and then come back in December and do a fun Christmas themed one. We'll build something for Santa Claus. That could be really that'd be fun.
Have letters to Santa Claus.
Oh hey, yes. We'll learn how to do all kinds of fun stuff.
Or we could do like a good or no. Not or not, but for like Christmas behavior.
I love it. Well, cool. Hit me with questions. If y'all want to stick around, we can go ahead and look at some of that now, just while it's all fresh on the mind. But yeah.
Well, I mean, there's still 6 people watching, so I'm going to leave the stream up.
Cool. Let's just keep going. Yeah. Cool. Let's do it. Yeah. What have you got?
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey, I'll be here. Let's do it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So what? Thank you. Yeah. If you gotta go, you gotta go. It's all good. Yes.
It's still, it should process as soon as we stop streaming. So.
Cool. Let's keep going. Let's do that. Let's just go ahead and build our other entity. I had this whole idea where we're going to do employees, ghosts, and captures. So you'd have a record of like when they captured them. And I have those already written out. So I'll just, again, go to my gist and we'll copy paste. Is that the right one? Nope. Yeah, man. There we go. Let's take this one and just go through it. This is for, actually, we'll do ghosts first. So this is for ghosts. We'll have, again, another folder here in our source called ghosts. And that's where we'll keep our controller, our entity, all that good stuff. Is that too small to read? Okay, good. Because otherwise it's like too big for me to read. So ghost dot entity dot ts. Also, I'm again stickler on consistency. That should be single. Yeah. Sorry, I had to steal a power brick earlier. Dude, thank you again so much for owning it. And thanks for being here. Thanks, y'all. Let's copy and paste that in. Cool. So obviously capture is not going to work as in place, but these, I think all of these columns are the same, right? We have a number type that's primary generated. We have a column that's a string. We have a column that uses this timestamp TZ, which we may not have done over here for date of birth. We didn't. That's not proper. We should really define that it is timestamp TZ. It's just it can interpret it because we've set the type as date, But you really should define timestamp TZ to know that it is a time zone ready table. It just prefers that basically. Create a date, update date, all that's good. Let's do our capture one too. Again, just have it copy and pasteable. Let's look at that. So we'll do capture. Yeah, I really wanted to get into this because it can auto-generate your relationship tables, like your join tables. It can do a whole separate join table automatically, which is what we're going to do. Is very sweet. Great. Let's update our imports. See if that worked. Didn't. I gotta go up a level. Does it work? Yeah, great. And this is it right here. This we have a many-to-many relationship. Just because I figured, ghosts get out, sort of the reason that there were 2 Ghostbusters. The second was all about ghosts getting out. So if they get out, they can get captured again. So we have a many-to-many. There could be many ghosts per capture, like event where they go and they capture ghosts. There might be multiple ghosts. And then also, the ghosts might get captured multiple times. Same with employees. Employees are going to capture multiple ghosts, and ghosts can be captured by multiple employees. So we have 2 many-to-many relationships, and it's set up just like a column, and it takes a function callback, and it's really just saying, you're almost, again, just defining the type. What do I expect it to join to? It should join to an employee type. Same up here with ghost. If you give it the join table decorator, it won't do it inline. It'll break it out as a separate join table automatically. That's what we got here. And then also we are just defining TypeScript types. So we say ghosts should return me, in my code, should return me an array of ghost objects. Employees should return me an array of employee objects. Let's go down here to ghost. Let's make sure it can find capture because, we don't even need that. I forgot because originally I had it as many-to-one and then I thought about it. So it can handle many-to-many, one-to-many, many-to-one, one-to-one, all your relationships, and it's a pretty similar setup for each one. It can do join tables on any of those.
So does the entity file act as the migration?
No, so you do generate migrations separately, and in production you'll want to do that, right? And it can generate them. Let's see if we can make it. I think I can literally just do TypeORM. What is it? Migration generate? Is it like that? It might just be TypeORM migration generate, and then it will write out my SQL queries and everything, generate them for me, and then I can run them. Handles it pretty nicely. Like I said, you just don't want that synchronized true in production because you'll kill your data. Luckily, I was not in production. This was a totally new project. But I was like, I don't understand why these tables are I can't write any data. I was like, I can't write any data. It's never there. It never shows up. And I realized, hey, every time I ran it the second time, it was overwriting it. Yeah. I think this is working. That looked like it worked. Let's see. So if I go here, I bet it didn't work. Because I think you have to define. Yeah, I did a lot of nothing. You have to define in your ORM config where to write your migrations. So I think we'd do migrations. Here again, we would do build / source / star. Or how would we want to do this? Where would we put those? / migrations. Actually, I might just put them in the folder right there.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess I'm comparing it to press and SQLize.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of fine.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. That'd be basically it, right? You define where the migrations are. I think there's got to be some trick to it with TypeScript though, because I'm thinking now it's going to use that to tell me where to generate my migrations to and where to pull them from. But I need to generate them in my source, and then I need to pull from my build. So I'm not sure actually how I would set that up. In the past, I've like I said, I've done these manually. So name of migration, and then import that from the migration file and do that for each one just to have better control. But it should work like this. I just I haven't done it. I need to think on that. I want to figure that out. Yeah. Let's see. I think we looked at the basics of how those kind of all work. Let's do this one. This is a good one too. So with Ghost now we have with a capture we have many ghosts and employees. And so kind of the question that I stumbled on at one point. Let's go ahead and do our capture.controller and our capture.handler. Oh yeah, just handler.ts. I don't know why I'm doing that. Just feels right. Class. So what I want to show is like how do you, if you have a relationship, how do you write that? How do you like save that information to the database? So let's say create one, and it's going to be, these are all basically async, and it needs to be public and static. And so probably what I would do here is I would say, it comes in with probably with like capture data, right? So it's going to come in with an object of data that we've parsed in our handler, and we're going to say that it's got everything that we need to within a capture. Ghosts, employees, last sighting, right? Last sighting. Where I go? Ghosts, employees. We're going to break all that out from our capture data, just assuming that it's structured this way. Last sighting is easy, right? Well, I guess the first thing we do is const capture or new capture, just to keep it a little less confusing, is a new capture, and then actually capture dot last sighting equals new date with our last sighting value. So I'm assuming that we're taking this from like a web form or something, from a form, and we're just getting it as a string, and now we're putting it in parsing it as a date. That one's super easy. But how do we associate? How do we say, okay, we have a list of ghost IDs, and that's probably what I would call this, is ghost IDs and employee IDs, and I'm going to assume that these are arrays of numbers. What I would do is, since it already expects employees to be an array, which is nice, so capture.employees equals, I'm going to take our employee IDs, and I'm going to map them, make a new array out of them, ID. And then what I'm going to do is actually use my employee controller.find. I would have a find one function that would be able to look it up by ID. Past that, and what that's going to return me is now an array of employee objects, which it can then parse and put it all together, right? And make those associations properly. So even though it may store, it may only store the ID, whatever, however it's associating it, you still want to give it, when you're defining a relationship, you want to give it the whole object, not just an ID, not just an identifier of some kind. I did the same thing for Ghost. Yeah, that would, and if I had a find one function, that should totally work. Capture.save, and we're good. I'm gonna look through the rest. I was so naive. There's so much stuff I thought I could get through. Originally, I had a lot more too, so hold it down.
You were very aggressive with your plan.
Oh yeah.
Well, we're down to 2 people on the stream. And
okay.
I think
that's probably the bulk of it. We'll go over some cool stuff next month too, and I guess we'll basically just keep it as like, TypeORM, TypeScript, serverless stuff. We'll actually do a deploy next month. I'll get around to that, and yeah, and we'll do more of this relational stuff. We might actually just look at all the relationship types. But yeah, we'll make it happen.
awesome.
Cool. Thank you guys for being here. This is awesome.